Inspired by Lovecraft's The Colour Out of Space, 1965's Die Monster Die is like a mixture of the Gothic Poe formula, see the presence of Boris Karloff, and something more ingrained in science fiction, not like a 1950s American venture, although even more so for 1963's The Haunted Palace. This is an early example of the unique Lovecraftian aesthetic of polished, well-dressed high society uncovering an ancient, though non-supernatural, scientifically plausible though unfathomably unclassifiable phenomena, so strange and unknown that it renders the discoveries of scientific modernism irrelevant in the wake of a new de facto supernatural. Lovecraft's phenomena can come across as are written as though they are demonic curses or ghostly manipulation reminiscent of Edgar Allan Poe, although his worldview remains educated and grounded in a quantifiable, seemingly naturalistic framework, though no gods, only old gods. Whilst the empirical rug gets pulled out underneath the narrator/reader, a total illusion of any understanding about our cosmos, there is no sense that Cthulhu or the other old ones operate out of some Christian spirituality or traditional mythological ontology as Poe's spectres and souls ultimately had. I shall read out here an old K-punk passage from 2003 writing about the most legendary Nigel Neal, although I felt as though this applied to Lovecraft as well. Though believe me, there is plenty of K-punk material on Lovecraft and it will be read out on this program eventually this month. To offer a scientific remotivation of the supernatural, I say remotivation because this is not a reduction of the supernatural to the scientific. What became slightly irksome about Doctor Who in the Pertwee phase when it continually borrowed this move from Neil was the Doctor's airy waving away of the supernatural in the name of science. Neil's method is more subtle. It's true Neil agrees as science since the Enlightenment has maintained there is no supplementary spiritual substance, but the material world in which we live is more profoundly alien and strange than we have ever imagined. Better talk of the hypernatural than the supernatural in Neil's case, and rather than insisting upon the preeminence of the rational and therefore also of the human subject alleged to be the privileged bearer of reason, Neil shows that an inquiry into the nature of what the world is like is also inevitably an unravelling of what we are. In Die Monster Die, a betrothed visits his fiancée and her in-law, staying at their mansion in England, only to discover the family holds a terrible secret. A curse? No, a scientific discovery of extraterrestrial origin, the colour out of space, as we've established. Although it does function like a Poe curse might. Oh hey, it isn't often we have a Lovecraft story set in England, isn't it? I read briefly on that TV Tropes dive that this was to account for Karloff living in England, and I think it is worth it. You'll notice I used many screen caps on the lovely English countryside and traditional village-esque architecture, mostly occurring during the film's opening 10 minutes. I'm a vague Anglophile, much like Stanley Kubrick. Let's briefly discuss director Daniel Holler. This was Holler's first feature as director. He had prior been working as a set designer and on Roger Corman's Poe films, no less. Die Monster Die was a production of American International Pictures, who were known for their work with Corman. It isn't surprising that Holler's first directorial foray was via this company. A reasonably well-directed film, shot quite well by Paul Neeson, Die Monster Die relies on pacing and atmosphere rather than splatter and VFX, although it does feature, when appropriate, some otherworldly creatures, and its climax is quite exciting. I even chose not to display it in my screen caps. If you are so inclined to view this film for yourself, you may experience that sequence as freshly as possible. That's Die Monster Die. That's day 2 of a very H.P. Lovecraft Christmas. Do bear with us.